Good evening, everybody, and happy Tuesday. We have a doubleheader on the network, and tonight we start off with Inside the Pigskin. I have four of us. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can count quarters, and I can tell you right now, I have my regular football crew on the broadcast tonight. We'll go right to left. My co-host, Mel Farr Jr. Welcome back, Mel.
Hey, it's great to be back. Hello, fellas.
And Travis Holmes. Welcome
Hey,
back.
happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Let's get down to talking about some football.
You've got it. And also, we have Jeremy Ballrack.
Hey, great to be back. Ready to talk some football. That's my wheelhouse.
Well, don't worry. We have plenty to talk about there. Everybody's sounding nice and clear as can be on this beautiful Tuesday night. So, with that said, let's not waste any time. Coming up after this show, we have 108 Stitches baseball talk. So, with that said, we'll get to item number one. The XFL lost an estimated $60 million in 2023 under the ownership of Dwayne and his wife, Garcia. So the question is, Mel, how long will it be before its rival? How long will it last longer than the USFL, which is actually owned by Fox? Let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of money on the USFL side, and private enterprises, to me, they really watch the bottom line a bit more. All right, Mel.
So you said they lost how much? 60 million?
Yeah, the XFL lost $60 million, and it's owned by Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and Danny Garcia in their first year.
In a hedge fund, if I'm not mistaken. So, that's a lot less money than I would have thought, to be honest with you. $60 million is not bad for the first year of them doing this. Hey, it's going to take some time. This is not going to happen overnight. And I believe The Rock is the right person to do it because he's not looking for a quick return on his investment. He realized that there is a need for, whether you say there's a need for the product or you say there's a need for this platform, it just depends. The need for the product is going to be determined by the fans. The platform is definitely needed because guys need an opportunity to play at full speed to improve their games. You look at some of the quarterback play that we talked about, I think last week, and some of the quarterback play with the second and third team quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. It's not very good. Not all teams are the same. Now, some teams had better second and third string quarterbacks. Some teams didn't have, very good second team or third team quarterbacks. So I think in that aspect, it's going to help. It's going to help also develop linemen. I think it's going to help also develop skill players as well, because the only way you can get better is by doing it. And you have to do it full speed. So to hear they only lost $60 million, I'm sure they're flabbergasted by that. I'm sure they're excited that that's what their loss was. And then next year, you look at where you can improve and how you can continue to market the game. I think it's going to be here. I think the Rock, is in it for the long haul. And I think the game is going to be here for the long haul.
Travis?
Yeah, I don't see. This felt like someone trying to take them out of the kneecaps. Like this is an off-season report, also coming down right before the NFL season, and it was just weird. It was a weird report to not have much substance behind it, if that makes sense. Not much additional follow-up information, follow-up reporting behind it. And the reason I say that is because every league in your first season loses money. Like, you have to place the infrastructure. You have to figure out all the pieces out, all the additional costs before you ever make a dollar, and then you have the television contracts and everything else. They won't have those costs next year. They won't have those costs the following year. And they obviously will get better and more efficient in the way that they run the league and, figure out what ways they can cut costs. And some of this they figured out this year. Cool. Dope. So to Mel's point, hey, man, they lost $60 million. That is not like a crazy number for anybody else. If you started a business tomorrow, you lose money that first year. It's a normal thing that happens with any new business. Why are we treating this different? It feels like one of those Twitter stories that just kind of goes wild, but nobody actually thinks about the details, like the meat and potatoes and of what we're actually discussing. So yeah, they lost $60 million, but I saw a report the day before yesterday that stated that they had capital commitments for, I believe, the first 4 years. So they already knew up front they were going to have enough money to run the league for 3 to 4 years, and that it may not immediately be profitable, but over time it should be. And they expect to be, per a Forbes report that I'm looking at right now, they expect to be profitable $100+ million next year. So give it time. Let's not go crazy, everyone. A brand new business lost money. Yeah, and water is wet.
All right, Jeremy, we're going to go to the chat room. It's a little busy. Start from the top.
All right, my loyal fans of my show, please, if you like what you see from South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please subscribe and share with your other sports fans. Eric Katz comes in, and he says, nice Billy Sims jersey, Jeremy. Thank you, Eric. And Eric also says the USFL is going to exist as long as Fox keeps sinking money into it. Then he also says, I think The Rock has a good direction, and this was never going to be an overnight success. The Rock knew it, and so did DwayneGarcia. And $60 million isn't a bad loss. And that's exactly where I was going to go, because when you are a new business, whether it was restructured, refurbished, or reformed at a later date, you have 3 years to show a loss before you get into tax trouble. It becomes a tax write-off when you have a loss. A $60 million tax write-off on a $1 billion business is not such a bad thing.
All right. The only thing I'll add to the whole thing is, as long as Fox owns the USFL and they got deep pockets and they're running the whole show, they're ahead of the XFL in the long run.
Yes.
At the beginning, I don't know, but again, I'm going to confer with what Eric says. The USFL is going to exist as long as Fox keeps sinking money. Yeah, Eric, you're dead on there. I mean, Fox is running the show. They got Mike Pereira on there handling the officials, and everything is done there. So, of course, they have NBC showing the other games. So, I don't know. If I had to choose between the XFL or the USFL, me personally, this is my opinion, I'd go USFL, but we'll see how the talent levels play out. All right, next topic, okay? According to Odyssey, the top 10 NFL head coaches of all time. I'm going to read the list in alphabetical order, not ranking, okay? They've got Bill Belichick, Paul Brown, Joe Gibbs, Georgehalas, Tom Landry, Vince Lombardi, Chuck Knoll, billparcells, donshula, Bill Walsh, and I think eventually Andy Reid could break through with a couple more Super Bowl titles. All right, Mel, some thoughts about that list?
I mean, I think it's a pretty good list. Those are coaches that have done a lot of great things in the NFL, won a lot of football games, made a difference in a lot of players' lives. Now we don't have the luxury of seeing coaches hang around for a long time, like Coach Shula did when he was coaching, Coach Landry when he was coaching. Coaches don't get that the latitude to be able to be with a franchise, even like Bill Belichick right now, to be able to be in a franchise for a couple 3 decades.
Right.
You don't see that anymore. Even in college, you don't see that anymore, where coaches get the opportunity to stay somewhere forever. But yeah, those are legendary coaches. There's no question about it. I mean, that's a great list. Any coach that's in the game right now, should aspire to get on that list. There's a lot of great coaches out there. And there's a lot of great coaches on that you didn't name that whether it would be Tony Dungy, Mike Tomlin, Bill Cowher. I mean, there's a lot of names on there that that are missing. But when you have 10, there can only be 10. It can't be 12 or 13 or. There's always going to be somebody that's going to be left off. And like you said, Andy Reid, obviously he's proven to be one of the greatest coaches with his success at Philadelphia that he had and the success that he's having right now with Kansas City. And then, another great coach who, never won the big game, Marty Schottenheimer. I mean, all he did was win. Wherever he went, all he did was win, whether it was Cleveland, whether it was Kansas City, whether it was San Diego, that's all he did was win. And he's a great coach as well. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it gets tough, but you're going to have 10. And so, I mean, that's a pretty good list.
Okay, Travis.
Just wanted to confirm, you did say Georgehalas was on that list, right?
Yes, I did, Travis.
Okay, cool. I thought I missed it for a second. All right. But yeah, a lot of what Mel said, it kind of just rings that bell. Normally, if you are a great coach, you will have that freedom to be great for a very long time. Unfortunately, like he said earlier, you're not normally given a leash that's necessary to kind of build that structure, to build that depth, to build the program that you truly might want as a head coach. These days, it's the nature of the beast kind of these days when you're spending these insane dollars on these players. They're not willing to risk giving up that $180, $200 million, for 4 years for a guy I can just pay $5 million and replace them, $5 to $10 million for the coach. And it's an unfortunate evil of our current sport. But like most of these guys, you got 29 years for George Bill Walsh. George Halas was 29. You got Bill Walsh, who was might have been the shortest one of all the coaches that was named, and he was at 10 years. Tom Landry was the other one that was at 29 years. Like, you have a boatload of these guys who are having 15 plus year careers with the same teams, and it's just not happening. And even earlier when Mel mentioned, you got Bill Belichick. He has a long career with New England, but he didn't have a long career with Cleveland. Like, even that lease was short for him because he's closer to our generation. Like, we're just not giving these guys, even these legendary guys or who later become legendary, those leashes because of the money that's at stake. It's kind of gotten insane. So it's an incredible list. It's a great list. And it just stinks that now it's all about the players and it's less about the coaches.
Okay, Jeremy, before you go ahead, though, let's go ahead to the chat room. All right, where Eric wants to stay for a moment on the football side. So
yeah, he does. This isn't the Alliance of American Football, which had no idea what it was doing from the inception. Absolutely right.
Did they just have a guy from the Alliance of American Football just go to jail?
Yeah,
fraud?
Maybe. I don't know. There was nothing good about it. So if it happened, I wouldn't be surprised. All right, continue on.
Gordon Miller says, I taught him and his brothers bowling at Strike and Spare Lanes at Telegraph and Maple. I was 13. Apologize for me if he hates bowling to this day.
No, I love bowling. I wish I could bowl, but my left knee, which is my slide foot, I can't do it. But I love bowling. When I was when we were working when I lived in Michigan, I was working with my dad. Man, I had a team of guys. Man, we used to go out bowling almost every night. Man, I mean, I had my own shoes, 2 balls, everything. Man, I was really into it.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. You remember David Goldberg too, because he used to bowl with us over there at Strike and Spare over there at Maple and Telegraph, and then they turned
I do actually. In fact, many years ago, I did win bowling trophies over at Hartfield Lanes out in, I think, Berkeley. Well, one of my famous or infamous trophies, one I won a trophy for, was Most Unusual Form. So I take a lot of pride in that particular award because it's about the most different award. And it's true. I think I broke the trophy somewhere. One of these days, I got to have to put it back together. My other trophies I had went away with one of my moves. All right, so let's go on to another one here. This bowling thing getting interesting. Yep. All right, Eric's on
right,
roll.
Pat. The USFL has way more money invested in it.
And then
Brent DeWitt says The Rock definitely gutted out one more year, then decide his financial situation. But he did those 4-year sponsorships and the 4-year TV contract. Mm-hmm. I think he'll stick with it those 4 years.
He's got a hedge fund. He's more likely to stick with it than Fox, because Fox is going to look at numbers. And, a big corporation like that, they're going to look at numbers. Dwayne Johnson, because it's a passion. This is his passion, because he was that 54th guy, the guy that never got an opportunity. He's going to do everything in his power to see this through and make it work. And it's needed. It really is needed. Whether it's scaled down a little bit, it is something that's definitely needed. There needs to be some type of spring football for these guys to have the opportunity to get the reps that they need in order to get better. That's the only way to get better, reps.
Agreed.
And I'll add something to that after I read this. Mark Mancini says, great show, excellent talent. Keep up the great work, boys.
Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you, Mark.
To expand on that, let's not only forget that viewership-wise, it still did better than preseason baseball.
Well, that's not saying much, but all right.
No, that's saying a lot, considering it's a brand new league. And it was starting first year. For it to beat preseason baseball and end of the season basketball numbers.
Right.
It was in that in between, which shows football is still daddy.
And it will obviously it's going to grow from that. They're not going to lose viewership at that point. It's going to get bigger, and that's the first year numbers. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Football will always grow. Eric, here's the thing. I know in my mind that Fox will never give up the USFL because they need it desperately for that 10, 12-week period during a dry period of coverage. So I'm with you. That's what I think. The only thing that's a little bit awkward about the schedule is they probably could move it back 1 or 2 weeks. So that way the player situation, these guys have a little longer time to recover. Back to the original topic at hand. And I'll lead it over to you, Jeremy. The only one people might have a hard time recognizing on the list is Paul Brown because he didn't win the titles and has the cachet as the other ones. And you, Mel, listed a lot of good ones. But all right, Jeremy, close out this topic.
And another one that could be just outside looking.
What's that?
Dick Vermeil.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna say, yeah. I mean, that's a good name too. I mean, he did well in Philadelphia, did well in Kansas City, didn't do so well in what was it? No, he did well in St. Louis, did okay in Kansas City.
Right, just okay. They were a middling team.
But Dick's a great guy. Obviously, UCLA. He coached at UCLA as well. So, but
and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Had an opportunity to run into him, and he's going to the Hall of Fame if I'm not mistaken, or he already went to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But had an opportunity to run into him.
Yeah, he also coached for the Philadelphia Eagles too before he got burned out, and then he went back in.
Mm-hmm.
Came from UCLA, went to Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. No, I remember.
I had an opportunity to speak to him at Coach Donahue's funeral.
Right. Okay. Good correlation. All right. So yeah, Paul Brown's the only one most people in our generation will remember. The other ones, well, and you guys brought up a lot of excellent names. So, with that said, I have one more topic before I turn it over to Mel Farr. He's going to take over. 11warriors.com says Ohio State will only entertain late season night games on the road under the right circumstances moving forward. Well, I can tell you right now, Ohio State can write its ticket because they're a marquee name, and they're definitely not going to lose home games at night in Columbus. I know one thing. When you're an elite university like Ohio State, you write your own ticket, and the TV money's all well and good, but the Buckeyes certainly are doing fine, and no, it's pretty hard to argue against Michigan and Ohio State. The other ones on that list, well, you got Penn State, Michigan State playing at Ford Field, so they're movable, bendable, but Ohio State can write its own ticket. All right, Mel, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State's a marquee brand. There's no question about it. They can do what they want to do. People, if they feel that way, they have every right to feel that way. I mean, they want to play when it's to their advantage and make sure everything is to their advantage. And I don't blame them. And again, like you said, they're Ohio State. They can do what they want to do. They can write their own ticket.
Travis?
I don't get it. I understand why they do it, but I don't get it. I don't fully understand it, and maybe I'm just
as
not
a player.
smart
I'd
enough.
rather play at night.
Right,
As a player, I'd rather
right.
play at night. It's
Like that's
cooler.
a cool thing. Bingo.
It
like
is cool.
We here. Like I'm fully with you. Like
And
I played at a lot of night games. I love them.
Yeah,
I enjoyed them. That's great, especially for a college student. And you know, early the next morning. I don't fully understand what the argument would be for not playing the night games. Like, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say in high school, all the high schools played on Friday night because we didn't have our own field. We played on Saturday afternoon, so I always wanted to play on Friday on play night games.
Right. So this has to be something to do with the money. And I don't and I know they had the whole TV negotiations issues and all that stuff going on. And I don't know how some of that may overlap with, maybe not having the right sponsors or the right, television issues. But that's always where my mind goes. When something doesn't make sense to me, then somewhere down the line, it must not make financial sense. Like that must just be the piece, because it's not about the player safety. It's not about the turf, even though they originally argued about the whole winterizing the field. It's nonsense. Come on. We know that's not true. We know that it's not that the stadium's not well, made up for the winter games or something. Come on, man. Again, talk to me like I'm an adult. That's nonsense. So at the end of it all, it has to do with money somewhere down the line. And maybe they're just not finding that right deal with the television contract. And all of a sudden, if that worked itself out, maybe they would change their tune on this. I don't know.
All right. Before I go over to Jeremy, I just want to point out that Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Just pop in the chat room. That's one way to do it. Or the other way to do it is send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune billwalsh@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com. And I Twitter handle is at Tribune South. Candy Eveling is behind the scenes. She does everything from posting the shows as well as all the content. Go ahead, Jeremy.
All right. The reason why they want to pick which night games it is, they want it to be the teams that'll draw in the most fans. You don't want it to be Ball State at the end of the year. You don't want it to be Purdue. You don't want it to be Nebraska, who doesn't travel well in the Big Ten. You want it to be Michigan State, Penn State, and Michigan. And until they beat Michigan again at night, go ahead and keep playing them at night.
Okay. All right. You know what? I'm going to turn it over to Mel. What do you got?
Well, this is real quick. You think he's crazy or not? Saquanbarkley had they spoken for the first time regarding his contract situation, and we're asking him if he felt that him and the Giants would be able to get something done, and he feels pretty confident about it. But they also asked him if he'd be willing to sit out this year as opposed to playing for the franchise tag, which is like a little over $10 million. And he said it is something that he's considering. Is that something that you guys think that Saquanbarkley should be considering, Jeremy?
Absolutely not. He needs to look at what happened to Le'Veon Bell, who sat out a year when sitting out the franchise tag. That $10 million he missed out on, you know what it ended up costing him overall with the little contract he got from the Jets? $26 million over 2 years. So no, I think it's a big mistake.
Le'Veon missed out on $16 million. The franchise tag at that time was $16.
I understand, but at the same time, he got paid less by the Jets because he sat out, because nobody else wanted to pick him out. I'm saying altogether, he lost $26 million because he was given a contract that was $10 million less than the franchise tag.
Right. What do you think, Travis?
I mean, is that something that he should be thinking about in real life? Probably not. Is that something that he should be saying out loud? Absolutely. Like, that's what the game is. I mean, we all know what this is. These guys get microphones shoved in their face and they're told to give true and honest answers that don't sound like BS. Well, they are then going to say the things that they're negotiating in public. They're negotiating with a microphone in their face. And so he's saying what he's supposed to say if you want the money. And if you have an agent, anything worth their salt, hey, no, you better absolutely tell them that holding out is a possibility. Get them back to the negotiating table and let's up that cost. So, I mean, I negotiate every day for a living. Like, so I'm here for this. I will absolutely tell them I'm here. I'm not showing up to camp. I'm not showing up for the first game. That may be a possibility. Like, I don't know. Tell me what I am worth to you, organization who has already made your draft picks and already signed the majority of guys in free agency. Yeah, I'm absolutely contemplating sitting out. And not to mention that the entire running back crew across the NFL, they all feel disrespected at this current moment in time. It's just as far as how they've been paid. I think someone said that the NFL running backs at this point, they've been so devalued that they're being paid like plus kickers. They're being paid like basically like Pro Bowl kickers, which is just wild because these guys take such a beating. Like, they are one of the main guys that take such a beating, and they are just not getting that guaranteed financial security that like these other guys are getting.
No question about it. I mean, one of the guys that touches the ball, most, other than the quarterback, they got to be able to pass block, and they have to be able to be a good receiver as well. And they're being devalued, and I think it's terrible. I mean, you pay a receiver $20-25 million to touch the ball 6-8 times a game, and he doesn't really get involved in the run game too much. They do everything they can to avoid contact. So yeah, I'm like with you as a former running back. Yeah, I'm upset because you look what the franchise tag number is now versus when Le'Veon Bell held out, $10 million.
Right.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right. Tight ends are making more than that. The tight end franchise tag is 11.
It's huge. I mean, tight ends make big money now, man. I mean, you got tight ends making big money. I mean, you're right. I mean, right. We're the second least paid position, right above kicker.
All right, let me tell you this, okay? I understand the devalued situation in terms of the position. But here's my issue with Saquanbarkley, okay? I think it's a mistake if he does sit out the entire year. And I look at it from the other standpoint that the Giants paid him a lot of money when he was hurt. Okay, and think about it. This guy earned a lot of money, and he's been an injury-prone player up until last year. So to me, I hope that they can negotiate a little higher deal for him. But for him to go ahead and think, well, I'm going to sit out otherwise, well, you know what? Here's the thing, okay, Saquon, you've been sitting out in the organization, been putting money in your pocket. So I think you need to reach a happy medium on the compromise. But no, I don't think you sit out at all. I think you show up and use it as a prove it type of year and then see what you can get next year. That's what I really think. Injured players that think they can come back and ask more money, and they always say in sickness and health until death do us part, in sickness and in health, we stood with you. Okay. Now you need to go out there and have that one prove it year. And then let's talk about it a year later. Now, don't get me wrong. If they can go ahead and get a little bit more money through negotiation, a little bit, I'm okay with it, but I really struggle with this one. Sorry, but that's, even though I didn't play the position, I understand that when a guy hasn't played due to lack of availability, and I say lack of availability because of injuries, then I look at it like, not that you owe the team, but I think you have to prove to them again that you can go there and be available 2 years in a row without missing games. Just like when we talked about Lamar Jackson. Okay, here's a guy who went out there and he got his money. Thankfully he did. But, for a while it was a situation where, he was betting on himself until the Ravens decided, let's just pay this guy anyhow. So
I don't understand that, because with Lamar Jackson's contract, didn't running back franchise tag go up?
Yeah, I know, but you're missing the point, Jeremy. Okay.
Oh gosh,
no, I know. Well, Jeremy, I'm being serious.
He made a joke that Lamar Jackson is a good.
I made a joke at Lamar Jackson.
I'm trying to be serious and
stay. I understand what you're saying.
Right. That's all. I mean,
my only problem with that argument, if you don't mind, is that then it leaves the door open. Like it makes the argument basically that the organization stood by Saquon like they had a choice. They didn't have much of a choice. Let's be honest about the way that his contract was structured. It's not that they would have lost money cutting him, and he's a quality player. They had to take the risk to see if he would come back being the guy that he was, and it paid off for that organization. So it's not in the way that the argument is being formed. I don't want it to come across as he owes the organization, because frankly, the organization was kind of just this is the contract that they signed, and they got 4 good years out of him, and he came back being that great guy, that great running back that they are used to seeing.
Okay, Travis, my question is, did they really get 4 good years out of him? I disagree big time with that, because he's been hurt.
Well, I mean, Daniel Jones was hurt. He got hurt.
All right, but the bottom line
is he got paid.
I understand. Again, we talk about the pay between the positions. I get that, but Saquanbarkley came in here as a top flight player, and he was hurt quite a bit. I'm not downplaying Daniel Jones, okay?
Saquon is the horse that pulls the buggy.
Right. Well,
let me ask
you a question, Mel. Okay, I know you played the game, and I've covered it a lot too, so I've seen a lot of quarterbacks and running backs come and go, including the one that Jeremy has with Billy Sims and behind him. But the reality is, we know quarterbacks will get paid a lot of money. And if Daniel Jones didn't have the type of year, I think the Giants are definitely going to consider cutting bait with him. But a running back, to me, okay, that's been on the shelf a long time, I think one more year, okay, and for him to even consider sitting out. Well, again, we're entitled to disagree. Mel.
I got you. So you're arguing that this is a devalued position with the devalued running back for 3 of the 4 years that he was playing, and he only that 1 good year. So because of all these combination of factors, maybe he shouldn't need to prove it. Basically,
I only say that a running back only has 1 opportunity to get a second contract. You only have 1 opportunity to get a second contract, and pretty much, if you don't get a second contract as a running back, you're never getting paid.
Right.
You're never going to get paid the big money. So he's got to do everything he possibly can to get a second contract, because it's very, very rare that a running back is going to get a third contract like Adrian Peterson or somebody like that.
Right.
I mean, the only problem that Saquon has is that Jerry Jones doesn't run his team, because Jerry will blink.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Hey, Mel, I'm not debating that. I agree with you. Running backs getting a second contract is very difficult. That's not even a debate that I have with you. I agree with you 100%, because that's the one position where you get beaten up. Why do you think Ricky Williams got out so quickly? Because he got pounded like I've never seen a running back under Dave Wannstedt, and I saw this right in front of my own eyes.
He was high on weed, otherwise he'd have felt it.
Yeah. He already said on the podcast last year that it was a big thing because he couldn't smoke weed also, because that's how he deal with this pain management, and they were going to test for it, obviously. But no, to
I didn't
your
post this.
but to your original point, no, Scott.
See
As
that?
far as, sorry, go ahead.
See that? Somebody posted and changed it to where it looks like me.
Oh
Oh, yeah?
gosh. Okay. No, but to your original point, no, Scott. No, as far as I guess the running backs are concerned, Saquon, it may be in his best interest at this current point in time to simply sign a 2-year contract, a 3-year contract, instead of going that 4 or 5 year route. Because right now, as we've always seen, the running back position is just significantly devalued. But maybe he can get that 3-year close to guaranteed contract, that shorter contract, that's sort of like a prove it deal, but at the same time, maybe the running back market will be better by the time he's back into it, and he may actually be one of those guys, one of those rare guys that Mel's talking about that is able to get that third contract if he just makes that second one shorter.
Okay, with that said, then I think the right contract for Saquon Barkley would be 2 years at 22 million or 24 million, and there's a little compromise there and going up from 10 million to 12 million, and then see what you have,
Well, look,
So
the highest paid running back is Christian McCaffrey, right? Has he been always available?
Nope.
no, but no, he hasn't. I'm not downplaying that, but again, though, he's had a lot more productive years. So when you compare him over to Saquon Barkley, I believe he has. I mean,
Gotcha.
Christian McCaffrey has been a guy that's been able to catch the football a lot, and they tell you what, this may sound really crazy because we don't talk a lot of fantasy football, but I'm going to kind of throw it in here to have a little fun with it, only to have fun. When my sister-in-law Marie has Christian McCaffrey, and I'm getting pounded in fantasy football, and this guy's doing it both in as a receiver and in rushing. This is hard for me to swallow. She doesn't know a lick about football. That's why I don't play fantasy anymore. I believe in playing reality football. Travis ought to know since I'm in the box at Jaguar Stadium. But no, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, trying to compare McCaffrey, a guy that carried Carolina, versus Saquon Barkley, who's really had a hard time living up to expectations. I think that's where things go. And I think a 2-year deal, about $24 million to me, would make sense if they could reach a compromise. But I love this kind of stimulating conversation. My goal is to go out there and see a lot of people respond to this conversation. Nobody has to agree on this show with everybody. I don't care. That's what makes it fun, especially since it was your topic in the first place, Mel.
I'm going to say something here.
I don't think Saquon can take care of his family in 2 years, $24 million.
All right, Jeremy, you got last word on it.
Okay. My thing is, I think the GM dropped the ball. They should have franchise tagged Daniel Jones on the transitional tag, just like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, and paid Saquon Barkley. Because if Saquon Barkley wasn't on that team last year, they don't win 9 games.
Okay, that's fine. But tell me what's going to happen in 23, Jeremy. Exactly. You don't know.
Nobody knows. But I'm just saying,
All right.
last year, we're talking about last year.
Next topic, Mel.
So there was, Calvin Johnson just held his annual camp up there at the Allen Park facility up there in Detroit. He's starting to get back into the fold. The relationship is starting to fall a little bit. He credits one gentleman, I can't remember his name, with kind of, massaging the relationship and getting him back in there. It's not all the way better, but it's better. He likes being around the guys, and Dan Campbell said some very kind things about him because Dan did play with him for a year or two while he was in Detroit, and talked about, not only, about the person as a football player, but about him as a teammate. And he wished the guys had an opportunity to see what kind of a teammate that Calvin Johnson was. What do you think about Jerry? Do you think, the Lions have historically not done well with their former players? We know Barry left out of there. It wasn't a very good situation. He stayed away from the team for a long time. He's come back around in the fold. I know my dad, for a long time, he, even though we had season tickets and so forth and so on, he had some issues with management and stuff like that, and the way they handled some players, even Billy Sims and so forth and so on. So he kind of was standoffish with the franchise. Do you like what you're seeing with the new regime and how they're trying to bring in the former players in the fold?
See, the problem was in 2008 when that CBA changed everything, where it separated the coaches' salaries from the players' salaries and all that. That's when the rule came in that if a player retires before his contract is up, they have to repay their remaining signing bonus because they're paid it up front.
Okay, can I chime in on that? Andrew Luck did not.
You didn't hear about it. You didn't hear about it by anybody, any other player that's retired in the NFL since 2008, except Calvin Johnson. And Andrew Luck did pay some of it back. You just didn't hear about it. I
He told him he
guarantee
can
it.
keep his money. No, Ursay told him he can keep the money.
Well, that's Ursay.
Yeah, that's a choice. Yeah.
That's a choice. What I'm saying is every other
The only
player is
reason
paid
only
back
reason
some
we have to pay it back is so they don't have to take that cap hit.
right because and they were cap strapped at the time.
All right. So if
Because of
anybody's
those
cash
contracts.
strapped, they may do that. That makes sense. Okay.
Whereas when Andrew Luck retired, his dead cap, because it was towards the end of that contract, didn't hurt them as much. So there's a big difference. If you're cap strapped, because remember, they were dealing with dead cap from coaches that were given 6-year contracts back in the Millen era that carried over because that was grandfathered in.
But that wasn't Andrew. That wasn't Calvin Johnson's problem. He
No,
didn't make those decisions.
that was the Lions' problem, is what I'm saying. And you're also talking about Willie Clay Ford. You're not talking about Martha. You're not talking about Sheila Fordham. I'm quite sure if it was Martha or Sheila, they would have said, "We'll eat it." Because you want to know what it was? It was $3.7 million he had to return. Well, now he gets that back because he took the mentorship role. They get to pay that back to him as a salary. So he hasn't lost a dime because that's how the rule is written.
I'm not debating about with anybody that knows the rules. So you know what I'm going to say on it? I'm glad that he's mentoring Jameson Williams. I hope it works, but I will never debate a guy that's reading the rule black and white like you are. Never, Jeremy. We may have disagreements from here and there. That won't be one of them. And I think the one thing about Johnson is there's no question he wants to. The PR is good, and I think the culture is no question changed a lot with Campbell, Chris Spielman, as well as Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. The Lions are a far better PR spot now than they've ever been.
And with Barry Sanders being back in the fold, I think that's another thing that helped
No
bring
question
Calvin
about
Johnson back.
Yeah, no
He's
question.
a
And
Hall of
again, one
Famer,
last thing
you
I
know?
want to add to it is Jim Irsay, you know what, has always been the kind of guy that's always taking care of his players anyway. So you know, again, he's paid a lot of people. He's been, again, bear in mind that Colts won a championship with an Irsay, and it wasn't Robert, because John Elway didn't want to play for him, but Jim Irsay got Peyton Manning, and he's always taking away his players. So Mel, where do you want to go with this?
So kudos. Well, kudos to the Detroit Lions front office. Kudos to that coaching staff. I mean, this is what you're supposed to do. You have literally two of the best players at their respective positions in the NFL, and like that's at least that's alive. Calvin Johnson, one of the best receivers alive, point blank period. Barry Sanders, one of the best running backs alive, point blank period. You have two of those guys that's alive and just not being used to promote your team, to talk to your guys, or just not in the building. So it makes total sense when you have a new regime that comes in. Hey, they want to get this right. You have the new front office. They want to get this right. And it's good job. Kudos to them reaching out to him and mending these, mending these feelings, mending these fences, that they should have done that. And I'm happy that it worked out from Calvin's perspective. I'm happy it's working out from the Lions' perspective. And they just so happen to look like they've turned the corner as far as the team play is concerned, all at the same time. It's beautiful. Good stuff.
All right, last topic real quick. The Big Ten came up with their schedule for the 2024 season. And they were talking about travel distance for each team in the 2024 season. Travel difference just playing your conference foes and also overall travel. And then they came up with a scheduling where you get to protect 3 rivalry games that you'll play every year. I have 9 conference games. They're getting rid of the divisions. You have 9 conference games. So teams will play each other twice within a 4-year period, at least one home and one away. But interesting, UCLA and USC will travel more than 15,000 miles to play. And this is just conference play.
Right.
The next highest after USC is number 1, and then UCLA. The next highest is Nebraska at 7,000 miles. And USC and UCLA are traveling 225% more than Nebraska, and they're traveling a total of 618% over the total conference. Now, UCLA, they also scheduled Hawaii and LSU that year. So they're going to be traveling a total of 25,000 miles
Good
in
Lord.
year 2024 playing games, playing opponents in away games.
Can I get them to
You know,
use my frequent flyer card?
Right, I know. I want to be able to use mine too. Right,
Oh,
exactly.
wow.
This is one of the things that I talked about when they initially, how are they going to do this? So USC is traveling 16,134 miles. UCLA is going 15,412 miles. Again, these are just conference games. And then Nebraska is at 7,022. The team that travels the least is going to be Purdue. 2,400 miles is what they're going to travel in the 2024 season. What are your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
You said Purdue plays travels the least, right?
Well, Purdue was pretty good last year. Weren't they in the Big Ten championship last year?
Please.
I
Please.
mean,
The rest of the division was down. That's all I got to say.
They're getting rid of divisions, and it's just going to be the best. The best two teams are going to play in the conference
And
championship.
that's the way it should be, because lately the best two teams have been in the same division.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's no question about it. I think that's one of the reasons why they decided to get rid of it. So they're going to protect the rivalry games: Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. That's going to be protected. The only one that doesn't have a true rivalry is Penn State. They're going to protect UCLA and USC. They're going to protect those, so they'll play each other every year. But Penn State doesn't have a true rivalry.
No, the closest thing that Penn State has to one, though, I will tell you, is they do play Michigan State a lot. They have Rutgers and Maryland in their backyard. But I agree with you. I mean, that's from a geographical standpoint. Before you let you turn over the other ones, for USC and UCLA, I just hope they know the song "This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land," from California to the New York Highlands or Redwood Forest. And no, I'm not singing it because I don't want anybody to go deaf over my singing.
So wait, that means that they got to travel to Rutgers. That's adding a lot of miles.
Yeah,
and then 2,800 miles
check on Hawaii too.
Yeah.
But no, the only thing I can say about your subject here, Mel, is it only reminds me of the song "This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land," and I'm done with it. Go ahead. Who's next?
UCLA travels to Rutgers. That's 4,800 miles. USC goes to Maryland. That's 4,500 miles. So that's a lot of that's a lot of time on that fanny. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah.
A lot of jet lag.
Yeah.
A lot of jet lag. What about you, Travis?
I mean, anybody who's ever had to fly on a long trip, like back in 2006, I went to the Hawaii Bowl from direct flight from Orlando to Honolulu. That's where we played in for UCF. That's when we lost in triple overtime.
Right.
And that trip, it takes a lot out of you. Like, we were fortunate enough to go there for a full week, so we can you can get acclimated and all of that. But these kids are going to be in college, like actually having to go to classes and juggle any additional things or responsibilities, jobs, whatever it may be that they have, in addition to these travels. And some of those longer trips are going to result in them leaving maybe a day sooner than they would have historically have left. Like, that takes an impact. Like, think of the real world implication of that, how that affects you. You could absolutely just simply see a degradation of the actual quality of the game, simply because these guys just aren't mentally where they should have been. They're not having the time to get reacclimated. They're not having the time to try to figure everything out because they're living their life from an airplane. Like, that's going to be an interesting dynamic just in this. Like, they're going to get better quality matchups, it seems, because of the way that they're making their schedule, with the lack of the divisions. Yeah, you're going to get some better competition that way. But you may get less good, I guess, less high quality games simply because of the effect this is having on these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids.
Well, I think you brought up a good point. There are a couple good points you brought up. Number one, as far as traveling, I remember when we played with the Rams, and when we traveled to the East Coast, we would always leave 2 days ahead of time. So we play on Sunday. We're gonna leave on Friday to give us an opportunity, to get our legs back underneath us at Saturday. The other thing you brought up as far as the schedule is concerned, the whole purpose of the schedule, playing the 9 conference games, is so that you don't have those big lulls in between times when you play one team. So that you know, one of the great things about being a college player is being able to play in a lot of different stadiums. And this way you'll have the opportunity to play in every stadium in your conference during your 4-year period of time. And that's real big. You know, there's been stretches where teams, you know, I can't remember what I was reading some with the SEC. There's some teams that haven't played another team since 2012. You know, here we're in 2023. So those kids didn't get a chance to play in that particular stadium because they never had that chance to come back around to it with the SEC with their 8 conference game schedule. And then they have certain games that they protect as well. So I think it's a real good that you have an opportunity to play in all those different stadiums at least one time during your college career. And having said that, Scott, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Mel. Well done. I love all of your topics. You know, there's one thing when I was looking at that schedule, and I saw Michigan was taking on USC at the Coliseum. I can tell you right now that one's on my calendar to get out to. I've never been to the Coliseum. I've only stood outside of it. And, of course, I went to the LA Sports Arena, which was across now.
I loved playing in the Coliseum.
I'm telling you.
When I went to UCLA, that was the first year that the Rose Bowl became their home.
Was that?
They used to play in the Coliseum.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, they used to share it with USC.
Yeah.
And I always, you know, watching, you know, as a kid, watching them play in the Coliseum, I always wanted to play. I love playing the Coliseum. I absolutely loved it.
Well, when I saw Michigan draw USC out in the Coliseum, I automatically said, you know what? And I have a lot of ties to the LA area. Jeremy will find that out as time goes on and he hangs around me and I introduce him to more and more people. And I still have a lot of vested interest in what I'm trying to do later on. COVID-19 slowed us down a little bit, and I'm too busy here locally and in the Midwest. But I do plan to get out to LA at some point or another. But when Michigan takes on USC, if my health allows me to do it, that's a game I truly intend to want to get to. I have a lot of friends out in LA anyways, but this is something I'm planning to do. But well done, Mel, with all these topics. I think they're great. We stretch it out. So we have a tiny little bit of extra time. I'm going to go around the horn one more time. Anything you want to get off your chest at all, Mel, that over the last week?
Well, it wasn't football related, but I was just talking about, you know, earlier when we were talking earlier about this kid up there in Cincinnati Reds, man. It's just tearing the league up. And you know, I got a little cousin. Yeah. And the reason why I paid attention to him, I got a little cousin that's 15 years old, and he's like 6'3", 6'4", and you know, he's built like a, you know, brick, you know what. And looking forward to, you know, seeing him and what he's going to be able to do. I was telling my cousin he should move to the Dominican Republic. He could get him drafted because this kid here, they signed him for $65,000 when he's 16 years old in the Dominican. He's 21 years old now, and he's playing in the big league.
Okay, what about you, Jeremy? Anything you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the report that I saw about Jameson Williams, he was actually in a hotel room when he bet on March Madness in his alma mater of Alabama. For him to get suspended in what is considered to be his home for the night, I think that is a little bit much.
So it wasn't during the season?
It was not during the season. It was during March Madness, which is well after the season. The Super Bowl's been played.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought, you know, you had talked about this before. I thought you said they could bet on things other than football.
But they say it was an NFL property, which means that possibly the room was paid for because he was traveling with members of the team for a team meeting or something like that. But it was a hotel room he was in. And I'm sorry, if you're in for the night, isn't that the same as being at your house?
Was that the only time that he bet, though?
Yes, that's the only report there is of him betting.
Oh, that hurts.
Interesting. Okay, what about you, Travis?
That's crazy.
Anything you want to get off your chest?
That's a rough one. Well, I mean, right now, you know, I'm a major Jacksonville Jaguars fan. So right now we're sort of in the middle of all of the posturing between ownership, Shad Khan, and the city. You know, everybody's kind of just posturing, trying to get ready for these coming negotiations for the potential new stadium or stadium renovations that's happening. So Shad's come out to the media and said some things in some snarky ways, probably that shouldn't have been said, and it's causing a lot of Jacksonville residents to get into their feelings at this current moment in time. Understandably, because we're talking about your tax increases potentially. We're we're effectively talking about taking money out of your pocket. So some people might be feeling some kind of ways about this billionaire owner, who they're about to start negotiations with. But I just wanted to make sure that you don't bite your nose to spite your face. At the end of the day, we are talking about an NFL franchise that we're one of 32 teams that exists, one of 32 cities that exists that has one, and we have a good one right now. We have to make the best decision, the right decision to keep the team in the city of Jacksonville. And overall, if we're talking about it's $1 billion, and I know I'm saying $1 billion like it's nothing, but it's $1 billion repaid over a 20-year time frame. I mean, you're realistically talking like 5 years, man. I mean, start like $5 a month. That's legitimately what it would turn out to be, because Jacksonville has like 1 million people in the city. We're not talking about big money. If you're paying it back in 30 years, you're probably closer to $3 a month. These are insignificant numbers. Keep the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Hope those negotiations go well. But Shad also has to talk better to the media when they ask him questions about these negotiations.
Okay,
Oklahoma City and San Antonio, they'll be happy to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm sure they will. All right, Jeremy, read the chat, and then I have one thing I want to say before we switch it over to baseball. Go ahead.
Up until last year, Shad had been a disaster owning the Jaguars.
All right. Well, that's true. Things have been tough. All right, two things I want to say before we call it a night. Number one, last night I was on the air for 2 hours and 19 minutes with a guy named Kevin Anderson, who used to be the athletic director over at the University of Maryland, and now he's with the Air Force Academy. Folks, if you really want a good perspective of the state of college football, I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and have an opportunity to watch it. We 2 hours and 19 minutes. If I'm going to talk that long and interview someone that long, I put a lot of time in preparation, and my goal is to hit every one-on-one interview and try to get the best stories I can. And this guy was also very great. And hopefully down the line, whenever that may be, if it ever will be, I'd love to bring Kevin Anderson on again. Secondly, I'm really delighted with the new show that we released called The Professor and the Pupil. Watch out, folks. The one thing I've learned in my journalism lifetime is you've got to be different. And this is a show that will attack being different, meaning that it's so easy to go out there and talk about the major sports, but our goal is to be able to talk about the other ones as well. I'm very confident our first back was good, because iHeartRadio has picked it up on the audio, and this thing has, our next episode will be in about 2 weeks, so hopefully we'll get more audio providers, but we already got about 7 or 8 in place. I want to also mention a really good one here while we're live. It will be the London Jaguars soon. You know what, Troy, the only thing to say to that is it would not surprise me if the Jaguars were to play 2 or 3 games out there, knowing what the monetary benefit would definitely be. So I don't think it's what Troy's saying is really off base. Shad Khan's a billionaire for a reason. Thanks for bringing that on, Troy, while we're still live.
I disagree.
Well, you do disagree, but you know what? We all have opinions. And I tell you what, though, Travis, I backed you quite a bit in public about what you did when you talked about Daytona being a potential spot, and I will go to bat for my guys all day long. So I guess on a closing note, please pay attention to the Professor and the Pupil. Jeremy and I will be working that. We're open to having guests on there as well. And last night, though, Kevin Anderson, University of Maryland, this guy to me, when you talk about a guy for whom I respect so much, and I met this guy on LinkedIn. He's just unbelievable. So please go to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel and look for it, and we can go from there. So great show tonight by every one of y'all. And I will tell you right now, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk follows the broadcast. So, Mel, with that said, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can follow me on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr., Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and follow what we have going on here in Georgia and also up in Michigan for the youth at melfarr.org.
Okay, Travis, you're next.
Yep. You can find me here every week inside the pigskin. You could find me on A7BN Sports, covering all the Jacksonville Jaguars games as the technical analyst, and you can find me on bigcatcountry.com, covering all breaking Jacksonville Jaguars news. Find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook at Travis D. Holmes. Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
All right, we'll end it with Jeremy, other than myself. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, you can find my writings on the southfloridatribune.com underneath the Motor City Tribune heading, where you can take a look at my journalistic skills. You can also find me at Kneecap Biting with the Detroit Lions, which is my channel on YouTube, where I talk the NFL on Wednesday and the Lions on Fridays during the offseason. Then it's 5 days a week once the season starts. Then you can also find me any night of the week when Scott needs me, including on our show on Sundays at 10 a.m. on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, and share, and follow us. We all seem to know what we're talking about. Some of us know more, some of us know less. Some of us were players, some of us weren't. But guess what? We have fun doing it.
Oh, we're gonna have a lot of fun. As I always like to kid around with Karen Carpenter, we've only just begun because this is gonna be a great show, and it already started off well. But I can only see the potential that we have with that. So, on a closing note, once again, Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Well, at a very busy chat room, that's one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me 954-304-4941. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter @TribuneSouth. Candy Ebeling is behind the scenes doing everything she's asked upon. In fact, she's going to be on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Jeremy's going to get his first taste of that show tonight, too. So we like to spread Jeremy around a little so he gets familiar with everything that we're doing. So meanwhile, great job, Mel. Great job, Travis. Great job, Jeremy. Of course, you'll be on about a 5 to 7 minute break, and then you're going to be back on again talking about taking you out of your comfort zone on the dime instead of on the gridiron. So I want to thank everybody for joining us on this episode, and we will be back next week better than ever. Good night, everybody, and enjoy your football week. We'll have more top headlines next week. Good night, everybody.